everyone, welcome to today's video tutorial and step-by-step walkthrough from LYKKE's Amitami kits. In honor of the world's favorite game, we are of course going to be making a soccer ball today. I am so excited to get into this with you. I have here for you one completed soccer ball so you can see what it's going to look like, complete with your keychain so it's ready to hang off of your sports bag, backpack, purse, whatever it might be. But the cool thing about today's video is that there are enough materials in your kit to make two soccer balls. So I have here of course the black on white version, and I'm going to be making the white on black version together with you, which means you have one for you and one for your favorite teammate or friend. So that is a pretty neat detail, but without further ado, let's check out our materials that come included in the kit, and then we'll get right to crocheting our soccer ball. Okay, so here's a quick overview of all of our materials that are going to be included in our soccer ball kit. We of course first have our instructions, which I will be going over with you step by step today. We also have our crochet hook, which for today's video we're using a 2.5mm crochet hook, and we have enough of our black and white yarn to make both versions of the soccer ball, as well as our stuffing to fill both of the soccer balls, and of course 2 key rings so that you and your friend can hang these off of your bags, as well as 1 stitch marker to mark the last stitch of the round, and our tapestry needle to sew in all of our ends. So with all of that out of the way, I am going to start with my main color, which for me is going to be white because I'm making the white on black version. So I will need my white first. If you're going to make the white one with me, also grab your white, or if you're going to make the black one, grab your black because that will be your main color. So pick whichever one you want to make first, and then we'll get set up and get right into it. One last note to make about the instructions before we get started. I wanted to show you there is a diagram for magic ring, single crochet, increase, and front and back loop if you want to take a look at any of those, but we are going to do the magic ring right now. So I'll show you how to do that, but I did want to mention that in case you want to check it out on the instruction kit. Okay, so first things first, for step 1, we are going to make a hexagon, and we're going to get very familiar with these because we need to make 20 hexagons. So with my white yarn, which for me again is going to be my main color, it says make a magic ring, and then we're going to place 6 single crochets into that ring. So let me show you how to make a magic ring. This is going to be the most challenging part of the whole tutorial, so stick with me. If it's a little bit too challenging, even after I show you, I have a little hack you can use as well. So I want you to try this with me, but just know that I do have another option if it's too difficult. So first step of our magic ring is I want you to place 2 fingers out, both your index finger and your middle finger, and I want you to take that yarn and drape it over those 2 fingers with the yarn tail facing downwards towards your desk by your middle finger, and clamp that into place with your thumb. You can go ahead and give it a little tug, make sure it's nice and snug. It's going to hold that in place for us, and we're going to take our working side of the yarn, that's by our index finger, wrap it around our fingers, coming back up from underneath our middle finger. I want you to create a crisscross over your index finger here. Once you've done that, you can turn your hand slightly, and with that ring finger, go ahead and grab that yarn. You want to hold that into place with your ring finger. Then go ahead and take your crochet hook with the hook side facing downwards towards the table. Go under that first strand and grab that second strand of yarn, pulling it back under that first strand just like that. Then let's shift our hook towards us. We're going to slightly twist the hook, and we're going to roll that yarn over to our working yarn over here. Once we're over to the working yarn on our middle finger, we're going to scoop up the working yarn and slide it through that loop already on the hook. There we go. We have now created a magic circle or a magic ring. So all that means is that when you pull this yarn tail here, it's going to cinch up those stitches nice and tight for us. So let's try that one more time. So we've got our 2 fingers placed out. We're draping the yarn over our fingers and holding it down with our thumb. We're going to wrap the yarn around to the front, creating that crisscross over our index finger, and holding the yarn in place, the working yarn, with our ring finger. Taking our hook side facing down towards the table, we're going under that first strand and grabbing the second strand. We are pulling that back under the first strand and slightly turning the hook towards us. Slide over to your working yarn and scoop up the working yarn on your hook. Once you have the working yarn on your hook, you're just pulling through that loop already on the hook, and you have created your magic ring yet again, and we are ready to begin crocheting from here. Now, if that was still a little bit too challenging, don't worry, it does take a while to master. What I want you to do is go ahead and just make a regular slip knot. And from your slip knot, I want you to chain up 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now that you've chained 4 into that very first chain you made, so the one farthest away from your hook, I want you to slip stitch into that chain, which is just pulling through both loops on the hook. And you're going to work into this very tiny circle, which is probably almost impossible to see on camera, but you've created a very small circle here. The only downside to this method is that this is not adjustable like our magic ring is, but this will work just fine if you work all of round 1 into this little circle we have here. So go ahead and do the chain 4 method or make your magic ring, and we're going to begin our first step, which is making our hexagon. So like I said, we're going to make 20 of these, so we'll get very familiar with making a hexagon. And for round 1 in our main color, whether that be white or black, we're going to make 6 single crochets into our ring. So when the instructions say into the ring, it literally means into this circle here that we have made. So we'll go in there with our crochet hook, grab the yarn, scoop it up, pull it over. We'll yarn over, which is throwing the yarn over the hook, and we'll pull through both those loops on the hook. And that's 1 single crochet. So let's do it again. Into that circle, scoop the yarn up, yarn over, pull through, 2. And we do it again. We have 3, and we have 4, and we have 5. We have 1 more here, number 6. Awesome. After I've made my 6 single crochets, I will go ahead and take my stitch marker. I'm going to place it in the last stitch that I just made, number 6. And after I do that, if you've made your magic ring, go ahead and take your yarn tail and cinch those stitches closed so we have a nice little circle made. Very nice. Okay, from here we're going to start round 2. Round 2 is making an increase in every stitch of the round. So we're going to go from 6 single crochet up to 12 single crochet. There is also a diagram for this if you're interested, but of course I'm going to show you that as well. So into this very first single crochet we made, it might be kind of tricky to get your hook in that first one because it's a little bit smaller sometimes. Go ahead and stick your hook into that stitch, yarn over, and pull that through, back up like that, yarn over and pull through, and that's 1 single crochet in that stitch. Now an increase means we need to make 2 single crochet in 1 stitch. So we're going to go ahead and work back into that same stitch we just worked in. So push your hook into that stitch again, go ahead and grab that yarn and pull that loop up, just like that, yarning over and pulling through. We now have 2 single crochets in 1 stitch, and we can move on to our next stitch. So into that following stitch here, we're going to place 2 single crochets again. So we have 1 single crochet and 2 single crochet. Perfect. Into the next stitch, we have 1 single crochet. And again, 1 more single crochet. That was 2 single crochets in that 3rd stitch. So let's go into the 4th stitch. We have 1 single crochet, and again 1 more single crochet. All right, you're getting the hang of it. Into the next stitch we have 1 single crochet, and then another single crochet into that same stitch. And now we are back to our stitch marker, which means we are at stitch number 6. So this will get our stitch count up to 12 after we work these 2 single crochets in this stitch. So let's make our first one. We have 1 single crochet, and again into that same stitch 1 single crochet. So good job there. You did your whole round of increases, and you go ahead and place your stitch marker back in the last stitch of the round so we remember where that is. All right. Now we're going to work on round 3, which is going to be the last round of our hexagon, and we're going to work 1 single crochet in the next stitch, an increase in the next stitch. We're going to do this 6 times to get to 18 single crochet total. So let's do that round together as well. Into that first stitch, we're just doing 1 single crochet, and that's it. Into the next stitch, we're going to do our increase. So again, an increase is our 2 single crochets into 1 stitch. Perfect. And then we'll just repeat that sequence. So again, we have 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then in the next stitch is our increase. That's 2 times through. Let's do it again. Into the next stitch, 1 single crochet. Into the next stitch, 2 single crochets. All right. And you kind of get the pattern now as you go. So we have 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. And we have 1 single crochet. My little yarn tail's in the way there. All right, and an increase here. And now we're down to our last 2 stitches, which is exactly what we want because we have 1 more time through the sequence to go. So into that first stitch there, we have 1 single crochet, and then actually we can remove our stitch marker. We do not need to place it back in because this is our last round of our hexagon, and we're going to place 2 single crochets into that last stitch. And that's it, that's our hexagon. So now to finish this off, we're gonna do something a little bit different. So I'm gonna walk you through that process. Remove my stitch marker for a moment. We need to leave ourselves a little yarn tail, not too long, nothing crazy here, but we just need a little bit. So I'm gonna leave about that much for myself. That is plenty. So now we're gonna take our crochet hook and pull it up, and the loop's gonna come off of the hook, just like that. So in order to finish this circle off and make it look nice and clean, we're going to do something called a false stitch or an invisible finish. And all that's going to do is take away this little like shelf we almost have here, which would make the soccer ball a little bit more challenging to sew up and have it be nice and neat. So we're going to create basically a fake stitch. So to do that, take my yarn tail here that we just cut of my white yarn, or black if that's your main color, and we'll thread our yarn onto our needle, just like that, our tapestry needle in our kit. And to complete our false stitch, we are going to skip this first stitch. So the stitch we would have worked into next, completely skipping that one. We're going to go into that following stitch, straight through the following stitch, and we'll pull the needle all the way through. Okay, just like that. And now we have the first leg of that stitch is created, which is perfect. So now we need to go ahead and work back into that stitch we had just come out of. So again, skipping that stitch in the middle, we're working right back into this stitch, but we're going to work through the back loop of this stitch. So for every stitch, we have here a front loop, which is the front bar of the V, and then the back bar of the V of the stitch here is the back loop. When we work our single crochets, we've been working through both the front and back loop, as you can see here, but for the purpose of our invisible finish, we're just going to work through the back loop. So right here, the back part of that V, that's where we're going to be working this next part of the stitch into to complete it. And we're just going to take our yarn needle and push it through the back loop only, okay? There we go. And now, if you look at that, we have a beautiful stitch here, which is called a false stitch, invisible join, and it just makes the end of our crochet look invisible, exactly like the name says. So that is perfect. What I like to do after I finish my invisible join, whoops, is I like to take my yarn tail and I just like to secure it a little bit extra into place. I do not like to have any risk of my yarn coming undone, so I just weave it through the back a little bit, just like that. And if you have pulled it too tight, you can kind of pull it back out with your fingers a little bit to loosen it up. Nice beautiful circle from the front. And I'm just going to cut these little tails in the back, pretty short here, not at the base but quite short. If you want to tie these in a knot first, you're more than welcome to do so, but I'm just going to snip these ends, and that is our first little hexagon. So now we need to go ahead and make 19 more of these. So we have a total of 20 hexagons. And once we finish with these, I will meet back with you and we're going to make our pentagon. So we'll be using our color A, whether that is your white or your black, and we're going to be making 12 of those. So I'll meet you back here in just a little bit after I have worked my other 19 hexagons, and we'll work a pentagon together. Okay, so welcome back. We're going to make our pentagons now. So as you can see, I have my black yarn pulled forward, which is my contrasting color, otherwise known as color A, and you have your color A, whichever that might be, white or black. We are going to make our pentagon. So if I can find the beginning of the yarn here. All right. First, go ahead and start by making either your chain up of 4 and your slip stitch, or make your magic ring, and we'll begin this next part of the pattern. So for this one, round 1, we're going to make 5 single crochet into our ring, just like we were doing before when we were making 6 for our hexagon. We're going to repeat that, but we're just going to do 5 for the pentagon. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there we go. And if you've done your magic ring, go ahead and pull that tight. Nicely done. We are now going to work round 2, and don't forget to add your stitch marker in the last stitch of your round, of course. Now, it will be kind of challenging to show you on the black yarn, but luckily you're probably a little bit of a pro at this by now. We're going to make 1 increase in every stitch all the way around. So we're going to bring our stitch count for this pentagon from 5 up to 10. So let's just go ahead and make our increases together. We're making 2 single crochets in every stitch. Okay, there's my second set of increasing. Whoops. Here's my third set, fourth, and I'm back at the stitch marker, so I can remove my stitch marker and I can add in my 2 more single crochets for a new stitch count of 10. Okay, and now for round 3, which is also the final round, we are going to do 1 single crochet in the next stitch and an increase in the next stitch 5 times to get to 15 single crochet. So very similar to the hexagon, just for a pentagon this time. Into that first stitch, let's just place 1 single crochet. Into the next stitch, we're going to place our first increase of this round, so 2 single crochets into that stitch. Into the next stitch, we have 1 single crochet, and into the following stitch, we have our increase, and that's 2 times through the sequence. So we have 3 more times. We have 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Into the next stitch, we have an increase. Very nice. Into the next stitch, 1 single crochet. Into the following stitch here, we have our increase. And our last time through for our last 2 stitches here, into the next stitch, 1 single crochet. We can remove our stitch marker this time, again for good, because this is our last round of our pentagon. And into that last stitch, we're just going to place our 2 single crochets. Awesome. Very similar to how we finish off the hexagon, we're going to finish the pentagon the same way. So leaving ourselves a small tail here for finishing, and making sure we are pulling the loop up and off of the crochet hook. We will do our false stitch. Just thread your yarn onto your tapestry needle, and we are again going to skip that first stitch here, and into that following stitch we will go through both the front and back loop of the stitch, pulling the yarn all the way through, not too tight but definitely tight enough. And then in the top of that stitch over here that we had just worked out of, making sure we're skipping that middle stitch, we're going to go in the back loop of that stitch only and pull it through to finish off our false stitch or our invisible finish. Beautiful little circle. I'm going to do the same thing with weaving in the ends here onto the back, just to make it nice and extra secure. I also want to have the least amount of yarn tails possible, because we will have quite a few ends later on in the project while we're actually assembling our soccer ball. So the least we have now, the better. And I'm going to go ahead and snip these off again, just like that. And that is our little pentagon. So now go ahead and complete 11 more of these. So we have 12 in total, and then we're going to go ahead and pull all of our circles forward, and we'll finally start assembling our soccer ball, which is going to be so much fun. I am so excited. So I'll meet you back here after I make 11 of my second color, color A, whether that be your white or black. For me, my black, and then we'll start assembling. Okay, and once you have all of your circles made, you can go ahead and corral them all forward. We are actually going to finally start assembling into our soccer ball. I do want to show you one more thing on the instructions. If you flip it over to the other side that we haven't looked at yet, there are little diagrams here to show us how to lay out the soccer ball and then how to stitch it together. Again, I'm going to show you these things too, but in case you want to look at the visuals, they are on just the flip side of our instructions we were just reading together. So that might be helpful for you, but I'm going to assemble mine into shape really quickly, and then I'll come back and I'll start showing you how we're going to stitch these together. Okay, I've just laid out my motif, and remember, if you have the black ball with the white spots, it will be the inverse of this, but we're going to sew it up all the same. So you can still follow along. Just know that you will have all of the blacks where the whites are and the whites where the blacks are. But if you're doing the white ball with the black, it will look like this. And now we will start sewing it together, and we're going to work these in small sections. Another thing to note, if you're having some trouble putting this little pattern together, just focus on one side, and then you can actually mirror it onto the other and match all the little circles up, and that might be a little bit easier for you. But since I am doing the white ball with the black spots, I am going to go ahead, and I have already threaded my white yarn onto my tapestry needle, so you go ahead and do the same thing with your main color, whether that be white or black, and we'll start sewing all of these little circles together. Let's work in small sections so it's a little bit less overwhelming for us. So we're going to start by this little kind of flower in the middle. That's kind of what it looks like to me. So that's what we'll focus on. So I'm just going to slightly push these away from me so I can focus on one thing at a time without losing my general shape. This one's going to go out of frame, but just know it's off to the side there for us. So I have my tapestry needle with my main color threaded, and we have our first little part of the motif we're going to work. So I'm going to grab my two circles I want to seam together first, and I'm going to put them with the wrong sides facing each other, so they're sandwiched together like this. And there are many ways that you can go ahead and sew these up. I'll just show you what I like to do personally. So I'm going to show you from the white side of the ball first so that it's a little bit easier for you to see. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the back loop again. Remember, we know what the back loop is from when we were doing our invisible joining. We are going to go from the back loop here, and we're going to go into the back loop of the stitch that matches up on the other side, and then we'll just go ahead and pull through. Now you want to pull through a pretty decent amount because we're going to try to go around the whole flower. It is okay if you have to attach and reattach yarn, and for some sections it might be even easier to do that if you don't want a super long tail, but just have enough tail to go ahead and sew these all on. So then we'll go into our next stitch here, and let's go through both the back loops on the front and back, making sure we're always going through the back loop of both stitches. So there we go. We can kind of pull that a little snug. It'll get nice and snug as we work along. And then let's do that another time into the next set of stitches here. So back loop here and back loop here, and pulling it through again. So that's all we need to do to seam up our stitches. Pretty nice and easy there. Let's take a look when we open it up. You can see it's nice and secure like that. And you might have to do some sections where you do a little bit more seaming together. Some might be a little less. You'll just have to see as you go. And I also like to take both sides for that first little part of the stitch and kind of pull them together nice and snug. So there is our first set of seaming. Now, since this is our center, this black spot here, let's go ahead and take another white circle and let's line that one up. And let's go through 3 more stitches through just the back loop. So here we go. We've got 1, 2, last time, number 3 here. Okay, nicely done. Making sure we're pulling that nice and snug every single time there. Let's do the next one. Grab our next little circle, line it up. There we go. And let's go through 3 more stitches, making sure we're always working both the same stitch on both circles. 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 circles done. We've got 2 left, so go ahead and add your last 2. We'll meet back up and we'll continue sewing the ball together. Okay, great job. I've just gone around the entire perimeter here once. Sorry if that little flower thing confused you. I just feel like this looks like a flower. But this is the center of our ball, all completed. And I'm going to turn this over really quickly, and just the tail end of the yarn that is connected to the ball. Oop, I'm a little bit tangled up here. There we go. The side that's connected to the ball of yarn, I'm just going to cut a little tail here just to get this up and out of the way for me for a moment, because we're gonna keep on sewing and I don't need both, whoops, I don't need both tails in my way here. So now we are going to work up one of our sides that we have here, but to get there, let's just start seaming these together. So now that our yarn tail and working yarn is both over here, I'm going to put the tail behind me and hold it with my finger just for a moment to get it out of our way. Okay, we're just going to follow the working yarn. So let's go over here by these 2 white circles and we'll push these together. You don't have to push them together, but it does make it just a little bit easier. And let's go through both back loops there. And let's pull this through. And we'll just do this until we run out of yarn, and then we'll rethread more yarn and do it again. So you don't have to leave an obnoxiously long yarn tail, just so that you don't have a lot to be pulling through and potentially knot up, if you know what I mean. Okay, so we've seamed that little section together there, which is very nice. And we can start working on one of these, like almost branches off of the ball, if you will. We can start at the top of the motif and work our way around the circle. So I've pulled the top of my motif down here, and in between these 2 circles we had a black circle here. So we can line that up, and we want it to be in between there. So not directly above one circle, right in the middle, just like that. We'll put that there. And we'll just continue the same process. We've already gone through the back loop on this side of the stitch, so we just need to match that to the side of the black circle. Pull that through, and then through the middle here, I'm gonna go through right here between the 2 white circles and then the back loop of the black. Pull that through, just like that. And let's do one last time again, since we've kind of been doing 3 stitches at a time for seaming it together. Okay, let's take a look at that. Nice and secure on there, which is perfect. And we might actually go ahead and cut a little tail here, because we're gonna now be attaching on the rest of this arm or branch of the project here. So I'm just going to cut a small tail. These will all be hidden inside of the soccer ball, so don't worry about it being too messy back here, because it'll all get taken care of. So we can go ahead and grab our next circle. Let's line that one up. And this is just the process we're going to be repeating for the entirety of our soccer ball. So through the back loop and through the back loop, we go through. Now remember, we do have a yarn tail here, so we'll want to be mindful of that, but then we can go through our next set of back loops. And again, our next set of back loops. There we go. Pulling both sides to be nice and snug. Take a look and make sure that it's lining up good, which it is. We can cut a little tail here. Again, we can weave that in to our soccer ball at a later time. This is the other nice thing about having a nice long piece of yarn, is that you don't have to be rethreading every single time. So let's work up the ball again. We've got our 2 white circles together, and we'll go through the back again. Just make sure we're keeping a nice straight line here, so everything is going to line up perfectly. And you have a yarn tail, so make sure you don't pull it all the way through and lose your yarn. Go through the middle and then through the last stitch. 3 stitches really seems to be working for me, and I'm pulling them nice and snug. And we have another little circle attached to our arm of circles here, if you will, for this particular part of the soccer ball. So after we connect all of these, we can start actually seaming the ball into a 3-dimensional object. So let's do this last one together here. Putting our circles together, making sure we're lining up, and we're going through the back loops of both. Okay, we don't want to take both sides of the yarn, and through the center, and then through the third stitch here. Very nice. Pull those nice and snug. There we go. Our fourth circle is attached onto the soccer ball. So like I said, go ahead and complete that for all sides, and then we'll actually seam the entire thing up together. Make sure you're being mindful when you're sewing your circles on that you're working on the right side of the circle to the right side of the project and not putting the wrong side on the front side of our project. We want our soccer ball to look nice and neat. So I'm going to go ahead and attach all my ends. I'll meet you back here and we can start seaming all the sides together, which we'll do in the same exact fashion we've done this. So I'll see you in just a moment. Okay, my soccer ball motif is all connected now. The ends are all out just because I wanted to show you this might be what your project looks like. Don't get overwhelmed. We're going to tuck these all in towards the center as we actually start to work the ball, because right now we just have a flat object. We need to make this into our circular ball. So let's do that together. Let's start up here at the top again where we had first initially started together, and you can see how there's this little indentation here between where the two circles meet. That's where this circle is going to go, and then right into the next one it's going to line up perfectly like that. And as we do that around each side, that's how our ball is going to be created. I do have my white yarn threaded again, and we're just going to start down here. And again, we're like right at that little flower base here. All of these should be seamed together by now, so if they're not, make sure that they are. We don't want any holes for the stuffing to come out. We're just going to again keep going through our back loops, and we're going to connect every single stitch that needs to line up. So we're just going to follow this all the way along the line here and make sure that our stitches are still lining up nicely. You might have to work around some of these little ends we have, but that is okay, because again, we're just going to push them into the center when we're done so they're nice and secure. And now here we are at our first little indentation. I'm just going to go up here through the back loop of the white and the white circles here, and let's pull those together. Watch our little end tails. They're going to get caught up a little bit here while we do this process. If it's easier for you to cut and sew in all the ends now, you can totally go ahead and do that, but I just wanted to leave mine out so that if you were feeling overwhelmed by them, I could show you that it's exactly how it was supposed to look. Okay, let's see here. There we go. And we're just working all the way around. And once we have a couple of the sides worked up, then we can finally start stuffing our soccer ball, and as the shape comes together, it might start to become a little bit easier to see. So here's another indentation we need to fill. Okay, there we go. Our first two panels are now connected, and if we turn it like this, we can already see that we have somewhat of a ball shape starting to work up. So now we can just go to this next set of circles. We can push them into place just like that, and let's just continue around our soccer ball working the same way we just worked this. We're going to continue working on each section, sewing it on together. Let me remove some of my ends so that it's a little bit clearer, and I'll come back and work another section with you in just a moment. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and wove all the ends towards the inward of the project, so you can see they're all in here now. It looks much less crazy on the outside, but we are just about done with the soccer ball. I have two more of our branches, arms, whatever you want to call these, to sew on our flaps. So I'll sew these last two down before the soccer ball is complete, but I wanted to take this time right now to go ahead and stuff most of the ball, since after we close one of these flaps, our little section to stuff is going to be a lot smaller. So let's get the base of the soccer ball stuffed by grabbing your stuffing that was included in your kit, and I like to spread mine apart a little bit just to kind of fluff it up, and then we will add it in to the soccer ball here. You want this to be nice and firm, not overstuffed. We'll still have an opportunity to add some more stuffing in before we do close it up, but this is a good chance to do this now. And while you're sewing this all together, just make sure as you're working around that none of your black spots are directly next to each other, so they have a little bit of space in between. And same with if you're making the black ball with white spots, make sure they're not right next to each other like this. That's how you'll know you are getting everything sewn down into place properly. So now you can really see it's starting to look super good and like nice little circle here. I'm gonna do just the littlest bit more before I start finishing up these flaps. And you don't want to overstuff at this point too, because it will make it harder to sew down these little pieces here. So I have these 2 pieces left to sew down. So let me sew these 2 down, you finish yours up, and then we will actually finish the soccer ball off by adding the keychain so it's ready to go on your bag. So I'll see you in 1 second once these are completely closed up. And while you're sewing down these last couple little sections that you have, the stuffing really helps make it very easy to just have the piece lay nice and rounded, and you can just go around. So I don't worry too much about folding the 2 pieces in half and sewing them like this. I kind of just let it rest on the stuffing of the ball, and I'll just go through both the back loops as we have been doing this whole time and just work around it with the stuffing in it. It just helps kind of already establish that rounded shape. So that's just what I'm doing for these last couple of sections here. And then as I'm sewing this last panel into place right here, before I actually close up this last black circle, I will take that opportunity to add just the littlest bit more stuffing just to get it to be fully stuffed the way I'd like it, because that will be our last opportunity to do so. So make sure you get it nice and firm. Like even this is pretty firm now, but I'm gonna do just a little bit more to really make sure it's nice and sturdy and holds a very circular shape. So I'll finish this up, put my last little bit of stuffing in, and then I'll meet you back for the keychain. Okay, our soccer ball is all assembled. We have a nice little 3D ball now, which is very exciting. And of course, reminder, you can always just leave it like this if you'd like to, but if you want to add that key ring, I'm going to show you that very quickly. So go ahead and grab your non-main color, your contrast color, color A, whichever you want to call it. For me, it's black because those are my little spots on my white ball, and we are going to make this together really quick. So first we need to take our crochet hook back for a moment, and let's chain up 5 together. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. And from this little chain 5, we need to grab our key ring that we have here, and we'll just slide it on to the back end of the yarn strand here. A little bit challenging with my nails there, but there we go. Now it's on our chain 5, as you can see there, which is perfect. And we're going to turn and work back onto the chain here. So we need to go into these last 2 stitches because we're going to skip 3. So we have 1, 2, 3 chains skipped, and then into that 4th chain we're going to work our first slip stitch, which if you remember, a slip stitch just means we enter the stitch, we grab the loop of yarn, we pull it through, and then we pull it through again, back to 1 loop on the hook. So let's do that again. We need 2 slip stitches. So again, into that next stitch, the chain space, grab the yarn, and we pull it through, and we pull it through again. There we go. Now our little key ring is nice and attached, nice and easy there, and we can sew it down onto the ball here. So I'm just going to chain up 1 additional one to fasten that off and make it nice and secure. Cut myself a pretty long tail here to sew this on to the top of the ball, and then all we need to do is grab our tapestry needle. We'll weave on the end of the black yarn here, and I'll just sew it down to the center of this black spot here, or this black circle. So I'll do that, and then I'll come back and we can take a final look at our soccer ball all finished up. Okay, and just like that, your soccer ball is ready to be on the go with you. I hope regardless of whichever soccer ball you made with me today, you had a lot of fun doing it. I hope you have a lot of fun watching the world's favorite game, and I hope you'll check out LYKKE's other Amitami kits, and I'll be seeing you very soon in the next one. Bye!